Good afternoon. I'm listed on the agenda as talking with a Family Farm Alliance label. I serve on that board, and the reason that my name's there, the Alliance board just very recently adopted a policy brief that was developed by its membership from both the upper basin and the lower basin on Colorado River issues, and particularly the 2026 guideline negotiations that are ongoing. But I'm going to talk from my Dolores Project perspective and history. That was included as I was fortunate enough to work in developing that policy brief. Water is life. We heard that eloquently spoken to by Manuel Hart this morning. There's a ton of hard to understand complexity in that simple sentence. Humans, both as individuals and with its societies, have an incredible ability to understand, utilize some of those complexities of life. They also have an amazing ability to ignore essential components to that life. Misunderstandings or inadequate recognition can lead to almost an arrogance in advocacy for policies often based on differing agendas or biases. We all need to approach today's hydrology challenges with much more humility about how much we don't know. We need to show more respect for the knowledge of our predecessors, Manuel and his elders, and their policies, as we collectively strive for workable solutions that will serve our descendants. How does life follow water? We need to generate thorough scientific answers to that question to build a strong foundation for successful new policies. I'll share some of my personal history. 1975, Jody, my wife, and I rented our first farm. It was down McElmo Canyon. That farm's water rights carried an 1886 date, and they were based on return flows, I guess, from MBIC's Dolores River water rights that back to 1885 date, 1 year difference. I had to learn to be an artist with a shovel. Some people call it an idiot stick. I never did. That was the tool for water application on my early farms. By the end of 1976, my wife and I had 2 more farms. They were in the Montezuma Valley service area. In spite of only 2 weeks of spring irrigation water from that MVIC service in 1977 with that drought, we survived it based on groundwater storage that had been there. My second farm of those 2, well, of the 3 that I had, it was at the tail end of MVIC's system. Water supply was much more erratic. That caused me to get in the water board business, see if I couldn't make that a little more fair. In 1983, I was appointed to the board of the Dolores Water Conservation District. My water board opportunities, along with my hands-on farming experience, have given me the real privilege of learning Colorado and federal law through the perspective of the Dolores Project. And that started with when I was just barely a kid days and still ongoing today. Still learn more every day. All of the supply for my community, which is all in the San Juan Basin, it's trans-basin diverted from the Dolores River Valley. I think this unique geography, hydrology, legal experience has been a wonderful template for gaining an understanding of the issues that are also being faced by the state of Colorado and the entire 7 states of the Colorado River Compact states. We're all responding to a new, more volatile hydrology and warmer climate. We have critically important environmental, economic, social, and cultural communities that are served by a range of diverse, both senior and junior water rights, Colorado River water rights. Both state and federal law are woven together, at least in my project, through contracts and law that's complicated, difficult to understand. But I think that San Juan Basin community that I was in over there is a microcosm of the success of our American gift of self-government, where new communities have been established and they provide the opportunity to live the American dream. The Montezuma Valley area, with its public forest and BLM lands providing summer and winter grazing, and the irrigated country providing a home base, it still allows first-generation agri-producers to get established. That's rare in today's world. As we struggle to meet the challenges that our current hydrology is bringing, we have to design a path forward that will retain the tremendous success that irrigation water has brought to the Montezuma Valley. We have a good set of legal and science-based tools to work with, but we're going to have to bring a new, more realistic mindset to our collective problem solving. The Dolores Project was the last traditional Bureau project to be constructed, but it was more than that. Early in my career, I viewed it as a wonderful example of a new, transitional project that would serve as a model for continued water development many of our growing communities were going to need. The project provided that late season supplemental water supply that Ken described earlier today, used by MVIC and its predecessors for over 100 years. It also doubled the irrigated acreage in our community. Those new acreages utilized as sophisticated irrigation technology as there is anywhere in the West. The new acreage expanded into the dryland farm country that was north of the MVIC, and also importantly, it expanded south to the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation, where it created that thriving tribal farm with wet water in lieu of a reserved paper water right. NEPA compliance also resulted in the second largest beneficiary of new project storage, going back to the lower Dolores. Although McPhee to recreate a year-round flow instead of that 100-year dry summer river when MVIC was diverting almost all the Dolores River flows. McPhee Dam was the first project feature to be constructed. Its immediate beneficiary was the downstream river users. And while infrastructure construction for project supply delivery continued for another 2 decades before that was done. The rafting releases were able to expand even beyond the reclamation's long-term planning expectation, resulting in those numbers you just saw being looked at as possible. They still may be. Additional NEPA client process also resulted in changing the Bureau's planned flow regime to a new environmentally managed pool supply. Unrealistic expectations for both of those uses became wired into the public, almost still remain today. The rafting community established 800 CFS per day as their minimum requirement. But the reality is that only 14 days supply for that minimum rafting requirement equals the entire year's allocation to the Ute Tribal Farm. Early efforts by the Colorado Division of Wildlife to describe the water needed for a downstream from McPhee to need almost 90% of the entire water that was available for the Dolores project. The Dolores River just can't provide that much water downstream from McPhee. Those water demand expectations are even more unrealistic when looked at through the reality of the last 2 decades of water supply. Colorado's state constitution established the right to take water from where it was found and put it to where it was needed. The early Montezuma Valley residents did that with Dolores River water. A fair analysis of the environmental uses in the San Juan Basin compared to the Dolores Basin uses of the same water has to be part of tomorrow's collective discussions. The McElmo Basin provides new successful habitat for native fish and terrestrial fauna. The last 2 decades of hydrology have demonstrated the need for all parties to accept the reality of learning to manage a new, more volatile and potentially permanently reduced water supply than was contemplated when the junior water rights were developed that the project relies on. We cannot survive continuing to pretend that the Dolores River has the ability to meet all of the articulated demands. We all have to come together and prioritize the water uses to match with available water supply. We need to bring a new mindset to our prioritization discussions. My history with the project and the complicated laws and contracts that it operates under give me some ideas about what should be priorities moving forward. The Family Farm Alliance has generated some policy positions that are valuable and applicable to my community as well. Next, I want to share some perspectives from the 3 irrigation beneficiaries of the Dolores project. I farm in that MVI system, and I've got a pretty strongly positive view of what the future of farming. The senior rights have provided good cash flow, even through the poor water years. That's the beauty of prior appropriation. But that minimal project water supply available in 21 was described as challenging by one junior project user. In spite of that terrible lack of water, the message I get from both the full service country and the Ute Tribal Farm is that they are resilient. They are determined to find a positive path forward. I think that the senior and junior rights can together find constructive ways to work for the benefit of our entire community. We've all shared in the wonderful success of the project that truly was the dream of our of MVIC's first predecessors. Irrigated agriculture from the Dolores River has brought life to a dry valley with not just food production and its economic benefits, but critically important environments for wildlife and other cultural benefits associated with the new irrigated ecosystem. There's no better place in the state to compare the benefits that come from surface irrigation to what's supplied by more efficient water delivery systems. We have them side by side being served by senior and junior Colorado water rights. Both systems bring their unique set of critical values, and we need to maintain those values. In summary, our expected more volatile hydrology is going to require new flexible solutions in order to continue the success that's already been developed with current water rights. We cannot look to agriculture as the reservoir for other uses. We have to prioritize all water that's being used for environmental purposes, both upstream of McPhee and including the San Juan Basin environment. We have to explore all potential augmentation water for supplies, new supplies, first by aggressively putting forest health water back into the system. We need to strategically utilize groundwater storage opportunities. Mother Nature uses a longer planning horizon than we do. That really makes her more adaptable than us. We need to manage to her long-term actions. We need to find a way to avoid too many more of these challenging 2021 type years. Let's find ways to store the high side of the more volatile expected hydrology. The Dolores River does not have spare water to send to Lake Powell to enable big cities, either on the front range of Colorado or in the lower basin, to just keep growing by standing up an unworkable demand management program. I think that the DWCD board can be a leader designing a workable path forward. I personally have a number of concepts that I think could be helpful. I have faith in the water community's planning abilities. The Dolores project has been innovative from before construction started. I remain confident that we have good tools to work with. Some folks around the West I've heard say the Dolores project was a mistake. I disagree. The proof is evident if you just spend some time there with me. Even with the new hydrology, we'll find a way to maintain our strong, healthy communities. I apologize for taking a little more time than I was allocated, and I'll point you to Family Farm Alliance policies to give more substantiation to what I said, and be glad to share my thinking in a more localized version when we have a little more time. I thank Southwestern for giving me this opportunity to speak to you.